The Frost Peak Mountains were not meant for survival. They were meant for exile, for punishment, for the slow death of those the realm deemed unworthy. The air was thin and bitter cold, the terrain treacherous, the wildlife scarce and dangerous. No one who was cast into the Frost Peaks was expected to return, which was exactly why the Council of Alphas had sent Rune there. His crime was simple in their eyes. He had refused to bond with the Alpha they had chosen for him, a cruel and violent man 3 times his age who had already buried 2 Omega mates under suspicious circumstances. Rune had said no, had dared to claim he had the right to choose his own fate, to refuse a bond that would have been his death sentence. The Council had been scandalized. An Omega refusing an Alpha's claim? Unthinkable. Unnatural, proof of defective nature that required correction. They had given him 2 choices: accept the bond or accept exile. Rune had chosen exile without hesitation, preferring death in the mountains to a living hell in that Alpha's home. So here he was, 3 weeks into his banishment, somehow still alive despite all odds. He had found a shallow cave on the 2nd day, had learned which mountain plants were edible and which were poison. He had fashioned crude weapons from sharp stones and had managed to kill small game. He was surviving, though just barely, each day a battle against cold and hunger and the creeping despair that whispered he should just give up. But Rune had always been stubborn. It was what had gotten him exiled in the first place. On the 23rd day of his exile, he woke to find snow falling heavily, a blizzard building that would make travel impossible. He needed more firewood before the storm trapped him in his cave, so he ventured out despite the wind, wrapping his tattered cloak tighter and moving carefully across the icy terrain. He had traveled perhaps a mile from his cave when he heard it, a sound that did not belong in these dead mountains. A horse's scream, high and terrified and full of pain. Rune's first instinct was to ignore it. What did he care about a horse? Survival was difficult enough without taking on additional burdens, but the scream came again, and something in it pulled at him, a desperation that resonated with his own. He followed the sound. What he found in a narrow valley between 2 peaks stopped his heart. A stallion stood chained to a massive stone pillar, but this was no ordinary horse. Its coat was pure silver white, gleaming even in the dim light of the storm. Its mane and tail flowed like liquid starlight, and from its forehead spiraled a horn of crystalline ice that marked it as celestial, a creature of legend that was said to exist only in the realm between earth and sky. Celestial stallions were myths, stories told to children about the servants of the sky gods who occasionally descended to the mortal realm on sacred missions. They were supposed to be unkillable, immortal, beings of pure magic that could not be bound or controlled by mortal means. Yet this one was clearly bound. Heavy chains of black iron wrapped around its legs, neck, and body, digging into its flesh where it had struggled. Blood matted its silver coat, and its horn, which should have glowed within a light, was dim and cracked. The creature was dying, slowly and painfully, trapped in this frozen valley for who knew how long. But what made Rune gasp was the rune carved into the stone pillar. It was massive, easily 6 feet tall, glowing with a sickly green light that pulsed in time with the stallion's labored breathing. Rune did not recognize the specific rune. His education as an Omega had been limited to domestic skills and submission training. But he knew dark magic when he saw it. This was a binding spell, powerful and cruel, designed not just to trap the celestial stallion, but to drain it, to slowly steal its magic and life force. "Who did this to you?" Rune whispered, approaching slowly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. The stallion's head swung toward him, and its eyes, the color of winter sky, fixed on him with intelligence that was fully aware and devastatingly sad. It tried to speak. Rowan could see its mouth moving, but only hoarse sounds emerged, the magic clearly preventing true communication. Rowan circled the pillar, studying the chains and the rune. He was no mage, had no formal training in magic, but 3 weeks of survival in the mountains had taught him to be resourceful, to work with what he had, to try even when success seemed impossible. The rune was the source. He could feel the wrongness radiating from it, could sense how it connected to the chains, feeding them power, keeping the stallion trapped. If he could break the rune, maybe the chains would weaken. But how did one break a magical rune without magic? Rowan examined it more closely and noticed something. The rune was not carved into solid stone. It was actually etched into a thin layer of ice that had formed over the stone, probably from the stallion's own celestial magic freezing its prison. Ice could be broken. He picked up a sharp rock and approached the pillar. The stallion watched him intently, and Rowan felt its hope, fragile and desperate, flowing between them like a tangible thing. "I do not know if this will work," Rowan said honestly, "but I cannot leave you here to die, so I will try." He struck the ice covering the rune with his rock. Once, twice. The ice was thick, and the rune resisted, the green light flaring brighter as if fighting back. Rowan's hands grew numb from cold and the vibration of impact, but he kept striking, kept trying, kept refusing to give up the way he had refused to give up every day of his exile. On the 37th strike, the ice cracked. On the 53rd strike, a piece broke away, taking part of the rune with it. The green light flickered, and the stallion's eyes blazed with sudden brightness. Rowan struck again and again, his arms screaming with exhaustion, his breath coming in ragged gasps in the thin mountain air. The blizzard was worsening around them, snow falling so thick he could barely see, but he did not stop. On the 98th strike, the rune shattered completely. The effect was instantaneous and explosive. The green light died, and the black chains simply dissolved, turning to ash that was immediately carried away by the wind. The stallion reared up, suddenly free, and power exploded outward from its body in a shockwave that knocked Rowan flat on his back. When his vision cleared, the stallion stood over him, fully healed, its coat gleaming silver, its horn blazing with brilliant blue-white light. It was magnificent and terrifying, radiating power that made the very air vibrate. And then it spoke, its voice resonating directly in Rowan's mind. "You freed me. You, a small Omega mortal with no magic, broke a binding spell that was crafted by the High Mage of the realm himself. How?" Rowan struggled to sit up, his head spinning from the magical backlash. "I hit it with a rock, many times." The stallion's laugh was like wind chimes in a storm. "You hit it with a rock. The High Mage spent weeks crafting that spell, layering protections and power, convinced it could not be broken except by magic greater than his own. And you defeated it with percussive force and stubbornness." "I am very stubborn," Rowan agreed, then frowned. "Why were you chained? Who did this?" The stallion's expression darkened. "The High Mage serves the Council of Alphas. They learned of my existence, of the prophecy surrounding me, and they decided I was a threat. So they trapped me here, in this forsaken place, draining my magic slowly to power their wards and spells. They thought no one would ever find me, that I would die here forgotten." "What prophecy?" Rowan asked. "That a celestial stallion would bond with a mortal, and together they would break the chains of oppression, would challenge the order that keeps Omegas subjugated and Alphas dominant. The Council could not allow that, so they tried to eliminate me before I could find my destined partner." The stallion lowered its head until its horn nearly touched Rowan's chest. "But they failed, because my partner found me instead. Hello, Rowan of no house, Omega of no pack. I am Sylvanus, guardian of the Sky Realm, and I have been waiting for you." Rowan's breath caught. "Waiting for me? I am no one. An exiled Omega left to die in the mountains. I cannot be part of any prophecy. You are exactly the one, Sylvanus said gently. Do you think it was accident that brought you to this specific valley on this specific day? That gave you the strength to survive 3 weeks in mountains that should have killed you in 3 days? That guided your hand to strike the rune in exactly the right places to shatter it? The universe conspires to bring partners together, and we are meant to be partners. I do not understand, Rowan said, overwhelmed. Then let me show you, Sylvanus replied. His horn touched Rowan's chest, and light exploded through both of them. Rowan gasped as visions flooded his mind. He saw the realm as it had been, centuries ago, when Omegas had wielded magic as powerful as any Alpha, when celestial creatures walked freely among mortals, when balance and harmony governed society. He saw the slow corruption, the gradual consolidation of power, the systematic suppression of Omega magic, and the banishment of celestial beings back to their sky realm. He saw the formation of the Council of Alphas, their deliberate rewriting of history, their creation of laws and customs designed to ensure that Alphas remained dominant and Omegas remained powerless. He saw generations of Omegas taught to believe they were weak, inferior, meant only to serve and submit. And he saw the prophecy. A celestial stallion and an Omega mortal, bonded as partners, would rediscover the old magic, would teach Omegas to remember their power, would break the chains both literal and metaphorical that kept an entire designation enslaved. The Council of Alphas had known about this prophecy for decades. They had hunted for celestial creatures, had trapped Sylvanus when he descended to the mortal realm, searching for his partner, had tried to prevent destiny itself. But destiny, Rowan learned, was remarkably persistent. The visions faded, and Rowan found himself on his knees in the snow, Sylvanus standing over him protectively. "You see now?" the stallion asked gently. "You were never meant for the life they tried to force upon you. You were meant for this, to be my partner, to help me wake the sleeping magic in Omega kind, to change the realm." "I am just one person," Rowan said, his voice shaking. "One exiled Omega with no power, no resources, no allies. How can I possibly change anything?" "You are one person who survived the unsurvivable," Sylvanus countered. "One Omega who said no when no was supposedly not an option. One mortal who freed a celestial being through sheer determination. You have already proven you are capable of the impossible, and you will not be alone. I will be with you. My magic will be yours. My strength will support you. Together we will be far more than the sum of our parts." He lowered his head again, this time in a gesture of respect, almost a bow. "But I will not force this bond, Rowan. Despite prophecy, despite destiny, the choice must be yours freely made. Bonding with me will make you powerful, yes, but it will also make you a target. The Council of Alphas will hunt you. The High Mage will try to destroy you. Your life will never be safe or simple again. You can refuse, can walk away, return to your cave, survive your exile, perhaps eventually find a way back to civilization. I would understand if you chose safety over destiny." Rowan looked at this magnificent creature, at the being who had been chained and tortured to prevent a prophecy, who was offering him partnership rather than demanding it, who was giving him a choice when the rest of the realm had tried to deny him all choices. He thought about his life before exile, the constant fear and submission, the way he had been treated as property, as a womb with legs, as something to be used and discarded. The Alpha who had claimed him, who would have broken him slowly, who had broken others before him. He thought about the Council's proclamation of his exile, how they had called him defective, unnatural, a blight that needed to be removed from Omega kind. How they had sent him here to die and probably forgotten about him the moment he was out of sight. And he thought about the visions Sylvanus had shown him, Omegas with power, Omegas with choices, a realm where designation did not determine worth, A world where what happened to him could never happen to anyone else. "If I bond with you," Rune said slowly, "if we do this, if we try to change things, many will suffer before things get better. The Council will not give up power easily. There will be violence, resistance, fear." "Yes," Sylvanus agreed, not sugar-coating the truth. "Change is painful. Revolution costs blood. I will not lie to you about that. But if we do nothing," Rune continued, "the suffering continues. Other Omegas will be forced into bonds that destroy them. Other celestial beings might be trapped and drained. The injustice perpetuates endlessly." "Also, yes," Sylvanus said. Rune was quiet for a long moment, listening to the howl of the blizzard around them, feeling the cold bite into his bones. Then he looked up at Sylvanus and smiled, and it was the first genuine smile he had managed since his exile began. "I have already chosen death once by refusing to submit," he said. "I chose the mountains over a life of abuse. I chose freedom over safety. This choice is the same, just on a larger scale. So yes, Sylvanus, guardian of the Sky Realm, I accept your bond. I accept the prophecy. I accept the danger and the responsibility and the impossibility of it all. Because even if we fail, even if we die trying, at least we will have tried. And that is more than most ever dare." Sylvanus's eyes blazed with joy and pride. "Then let us begin, partner. Let us bond." The stallion's horn touched Rowan's forehead, and this time the magic that flowed was not visions but transformation. Rowan felt power flood into him, ancient and vast, the magic of celestial realms mixing with his own Omega essence. His body began to change, not dramatically but fundamentally. His scent, which had always been subtle and easily overlooked, suddenly blazed with intensity, wild and electric like approaching storms. His eyes, when he could see their reflection in Sylvanus's gleaming coat, had taken on a faint silver luminescence. And inside him, in the place where he had always felt empty and powerless, something ignited. Magic. His magic. Not stolen or borrowed, but his own, awoken by the bond, remembering what Omegas had once been capable of before the suppression began. The bond settled into place with a sensation of rightness that took Rowan's breath away. He and Sylvanus were separate beings still, but connected at a level deeper than thought or flesh. He could feel the stallion's emotions, could sense his thoughts if he reached for them, could access his magic like opening a door inside himself. "How do you feel?" Sylvanus asked, his voice now both external and internal, speaking aloud and through their bond simultaneously. "Powerful," Rowan breathed. "For the first time in my life I feel powerful." "Good," Sylvanus said with satisfaction, "because now the real work begins. The rune that bound me, it was not just a prison. It was a seal. Breaking it has sent a signal to the High Mage that something has gone wrong. He will come to investigate, probably with council guards. We need to be gone before they arrive." "Gone where?" Rowan asked. "I am exiled. I cannot return to civilization. They will kill me on sight." "Then we do not return to their civilization," Sylvanus said. "We build our own. There are others like you, Rowan. Omegas who have been cast out, who live in the margins, who survive despite the realm trying to kill them. We find them, we gather them, we teach them what they have forgotten, and we become strong enough that when the council comes for us, we can stand against them." "That could take years," Rowan said. "Then we take years," Sylvanus replied calmly. "Revolution is not a sprint. It is a long, difficult journey. But every journey begins with a single step. Today, we took that step. Tomorrow, we take the next one. And we keep walking until the realm looks different than it does now." Rowan climbed onto Sylvanus's back, and the moment he settled into place, he felt their magic sync perfectly. This was right. This was what he was meant for. Not a life of submission and fear, but a life of purpose and partnership. "Where do we start?" he asked. "There is an Omega sanctuary 3 days' ride from here," Sylvanus said. "A place where those who escape or are exiled gather to survive together. The Council knows of it, but tolerates it, thinking it harmless, a dumping ground for unwanted Omegas. But there are nearly 200 Omegas there, and any of them could potentially reawaken their magic with proper guidance. We start there." "Will they listen to us?" Rune asked. "I am just an exiled Omega. Why would they follow me?" "Because you will show them what is possible," Sylvanus said. "Because you will demonstrate that Omega magic exists, that they are not weak or worthless, that they have simply been lied to their entire lives, and because you will offer them something they have not had in generations: hope." The Stallion's wings, which Rune had not noticed before, unfurled from his sides. Of course he had wings. He was celestial. The wings were massive and translucent, seemingly made of solidified starlight, and when they beat once, twice, Rune felt them lift off the ground. They rose into the air, leaving the valley and its broken Rune behind, leaving Rune's cave and his survival existence, leaving everything that had been and flying toward everything that could be. The blizzard raged around them, but Sylvanus flew through it effortlessly, guided by magic and instinct and destiny. As they flew, Rune felt it, the first stirring of other Omega's magic, responding to his awakened power. Like calling to like, sleeping magic recognizing that one of their own had woken up. It was faint, scattered across the realm, but it was there. Potential waiting to be unlocked, power waiting to be reclaimed. "They feel you already," Sylvanus said through their bond, sensing Rune's awareness. The awakening of one Omega's magic ripples outward, touches others, reminds them on some deep instinctual level that they are more than they have been taught. By the time we reach the sanctuary, they will already be curious, already questioning, already ready to listen. 3 days later, they descended into a hidden valley where the Omega sanctuary sprawled. It was a rough collection of shelters and shared spaces, built from salvage materials and determination. Nearly 200 Omegas lived here, all refugees from a society that had no place for them. The discarded, the defective, the defiant. When Sylvanus landed in the center of the sanctuary, every Omega within sight stopped what they were doing and stared. A celestial stallion was legend made flesh, and Rune, glowing faintly with newly awakened magic, looked like something from the old stories they had all heard whispered. An older Omega, grey-haired and weathered, approached cautiously. "What manner of creature are you, and what do you want with us?" Rune slid down from Sylvanus's back, his legs unsteady after days of flight, but his voice clear. "My name is Rune. I was exiled 3 weeks ago for refusing an Alpha's claim. I found this celestial stallion, chained in the mountains, bound by the Council of Alphas because they feared the prophecy surrounding him. I freed him. We bonded. And now we have come to offer you what was offered to me, a choice." "What choice?" the older Omega asked warily. "The choice to remember what you are," Rune said. "You have been taught your entire lives that Omegas are weak, powerless, meant only to serve. But that is a lie. Omegas once wielded magic as powerful as any Alpha. That magic still exists inside you, suppressed but not destroyed. I can help you wake it, can teach you what I am learning, can show you that you are so much more than what this realm claims you are." Murmurs rippled through the gathering crowd. Some looked hopeful, others skeptical, many simply looked afraid. "Magic?" one Omega said. "We have no magic. That is Alpha territory." "No!" Sylvanus spoke, his voice resonating in all their minds simultaneously, causing several Omegas to gasp. "Magic belongs to all designations equally. Alphas channel it one way, Omegas another. Your magic was deliberately suppressed generations ago because it threatened alpha dominance. But suppression is not elimination. The magic sleeps, it waits, and it can wake. "Prove it," someone called from the crowd. "Prove we have magic." Rowan looked at Sylvanus, uncertain. They had been bonded only 3 days. He barely knew how to use his own reawakened magic, let alone how to teach others. But the Stallion's presence in his mind was steady, supportive, guiding. "Trust your instincts," Sylvanus said through their bond. "Omega magic is intuitive, emotional, connected to life and growth and healing. Feel for it, not with your mind, but with your heart." Rowan closed his eyes and reached out, not with hands, but with his newly awakened senses. He felt the Omegas around him, felt their fear and hope and desperation. And beneath that deeper he felt something else, sparks of dormant power, magic that had been sleeping so long it had forgotten how to wake. He channeled his own magic outward, letting it flow like a gentle river touching those sparks, encouraging them, whispering that it was safe to wake, that they were strong enough, that they had always been strong enough. Nothing happened at first. Then an Omega near the front gasped, "My hands! Look at my hands!" Light was emanating from the Omega's palms, soft green light that carried the essence of growing things. Where the light touched the barren ground, grass began to sprout, flowers bloomed out of season. Life magic, the most fundamental form of Omega power. Another Omega cried out as their own magic woke, this one manifesting as healing energy that pulsed in waves. Another showed affinity for water, calling moisture from the air. Another for emotion, suddenly able to sense and influence the feelings of those around them. Not all Omegas manifested magic. Some had been too damaged by suppression, their power buried too deep to reach easily. But nearly a third of the sanctuary, more than 60 Omegas, felt something stir inside them, felt the first whispers of power they had never known they possessed. The older Omega who had first approached them stared at his own hands, which now glowed faintly blue. "This is real. It is actually real. We have magic." "You always had magic," Rowan said gently. "You just forgot. But you can remember. I can help you remember if you will let me." "The Council will come for us if they learn of this," the older Omega said. "They will see us as a threat." "They will come regardless," Sylvanus said. "They already hunt Rowan and me. Better to face them with power than without. Better to stand together than fall separately." The older Omega looked around at his community, at the Omegas who were staring at their hands in wonder, at the impossible magic that was manifesting after lifetimes of believing themselves powerless. Then he looked back at Rowan and bowed his head. "I am Elder Tom. I lead this sanctuary, such as leadership exists among the discarded. If you are willing to teach us, we are willing to learn. Not all will choose this path. Some will be too afraid, but many will. Many will welcome the chance to be more than what we were told we must be." Over the following weeks, the sanctuary transformed. Rowan and Sylvanus worked tirelessly, teaching Omegas to sense their magic, to channel it, to trust it. Progress was slow and sometimes frustrating. Centuries of suppression could not be undone overnight. But gradually, more and more Omegas began to manifest power. They learned that Omega magic was indeed different from Alpha magic. Where Alphas channeled aggressive, outward-directed energy, Omegas channeled nurturing, transformative power. They could heal, grow, create, protect. They could sense emotions and forge bonds. They could work with life itself in ways Alphas never could. And as the magic grew stronger, so did their confidence. Omegas, who had spent their lives bowing their heads, began to stand straight. Those who had whispered began to speak. Those who had hidden began to emerge. But as Sylvanus had warned, the Council of Alphas was not blind to what was happening. On the 43rd day after Rowan had freed Sylvanus, a contingent of Alpha warriors appeared at the sanctuary's entrance. At their head rode the High Mage himself, an ancient Alpha whose mastery of magic made him one of the most dangerous beings in the realm. "Rowan of no house," the High Mage called out, his voice amplified by magic to carry through the entire valley. "You are harboring a stolen celestial creature. You are teaching forbidden magic. You are inciting rebellion against the natural order. Surrender yourself and the Stallion, and perhaps the rest of these misguided Omegas will be spared." Rowan stood at the front of the sanctuary, Sylvanus beside him, Elder Tom and 60 other magic-wielding Omegas arrayed behind him. They were outnumbered. The Alpha warriors were trained soldiers, and the High Mage alone could probably overpower them all. But Rowan had not survived exile, had not freed a celestial being, had not awakened Omega magic, just to surrender now. "I am not stolen," Sylvanus declared, his voice resonating with power. "I am freed, and these Omegas are not being incited. They are being reminded that they possess power you tried to bury, reminded that they are not weak or lesser, reminded that your natural order is nothing but oppression disguised as tradition." "You speak of oppression," the High Mage said coldly, "but what you create here is chaos. Omegas are not meant to wield magic. They lack the discipline, the control. You will hurt yourselves and others. This is why the suppression was necessary." "The suppression was necessary to maintain your power," Rowan countered. "You feared what Omegas could do if we remembered our strength. You feared we might choose our own paths, refuse your bonds, challenge your authority. So you lied to us, broke us, taught us to break ourselves. But we remember now, and we will not forget again." "Then you choose conflict," the High Mage said. "So be it. Warriors, take them, alive if possible, but take them regardless." The Alpha warriors charged forward, and the battle that followed would become legend. Sylvanus reared up, his horn blazing with power, and a wall of celestial fire erupted between the warriors and the sanctuary. Rowan raised his hands and felt 60 other Omegas do the same, their combined magic creating a shield that shimmered with every color of life and growth and protection. The warriors crashed against the shield and could not penetrate. Their weapons, infused with Alpha magic, met Omega magic and found themselves neutralized. This was the secret the Council had feared. Alpha and Omega magic were not hierarchical, not one stronger than the other. They were complementary, equal and opposite, and when Omega magic was properly wielded, it could stand against anything Alpha magic could produce. The High Mage snarled and began casting, his personal power immense and terrible. Lightning arced from his hands, fire erupted from the ground. The very air became a weapon, but Sylvanus met him magic for magic, celestial power against mortal mastery, and they were evenly matched. "Rowan!" Sylvanus called through their bond. "The rune! Remember the rune that bound me. The High Mage is drawing power from something external. Find it. Break it." Rowan reached out with his awakened senses and felt it. A connection between the High Mage and something distant, a source of power he was siphoning from. Rowan followed that connection, traced it back, and gasped when he realized what it was. The capital city itself. The High Mage had woven a massive spell over the entire capital, drawing power from every Omega within it, leeching their suppressed magic to fuel his own abilities. That was how he had become so powerful. He was a parasite, feeding on the very people he kept powerless. "The capital," Rowan said aloud, making sure everyone could hear. "He draws power from the Omegas imprisoned there. He feeds on them like a leech. That is the source of his strength." The revelation stunned the Omega defenders and enraged them. Their magic surged, fueled by righteous fury. The High Mage, realizing his secret was exposed, attacked with everything he had, trying to overwhelm them before they could sever his connection. But Rowan had broken one binding spell already. He knew how to do it again. He reached through the connection, following it all the way back to its source, to the massive rune carved beneath the capital that acted as a siphon for Omega magic, and he struck at it, not with physical force this time, but with his own magic. With the combined power of 60 awakened Omegas flowing through him, the rune cracked. In the capital, hundreds of miles away, Omegas suddenly felt something change, felt a weight they had carried their entire lives lift, felt magic they had never known existed stir inside them. The awakening spread like wildfire, Omega to Omega, sparking and catching and growing. The High Mage screamed as his power source was severed. He staggered, suddenly diminished, and Sylvanas took advantage, striking with celestial fire that knocked the ancient Alpha from his saddle. The Alpha warriors, seeing their mage defeated, seeing the impossible made real, began to retreat. "Hold!" Elder Tom's voice rang out. The Omegas lowered their hands, but kept their magic ready. Tom approached the fallen High Mage, who glared up at him with impotent rage. "For generations you have drained us," Tom said quietly, "stolen our power, convinced us we had none, used us as fuel for your own magic. You called it protection, called it the natural order, but it was simply cruelty dressed in righteous clothing." "You understand nothing," the High Mage spat. "Without Alpha guidance, Omegas are dangerous, unstable. The suppression protected you as much as it protected us." "Protected us from what?" Rowan asked, stepping forward. "From having choices? From having power over our own lives? From refusing bonds that would destroy us? If that is what you mean by dangerous, then yes, we are dangerous, and we will remain so." He looked at the retreating warriors, at the Alphas who had come to capture them and were now fleeing. "Go back to your council. Tell them that Omega magic has returned. Tell them that we will no longer submit to bonds we do not choose, to lives we do not want, to a hierarchy that serves only those at the top. Tell them that if they want peace, they will grant us autonomy. But if they want war, we will give them war." One of the warriors, braver or more foolish than the rest, called back, "You are 200 Omegas in a hidden valley. The realm has millions of Alphas. You cannot win a war." "We are 200 awakened Omegas," Rowan corrected. "And in the capital right now, thousands more are waking. The spell is broken. The suppression is ending. Every Omega who remembers their power is one more who will refuse to go back to how things were. You cannot put this back in the box. The realm has changed. The only question is whether you adapt or fall." The warriors left, carrying their defeated mage with them, and the sanctuary erupted in cheers. They had won. Against impossible odds, with newly awakened power, they had stood against the High Mage himself and won. But Rowan knew this was just the beginning. The real battle would come when the Council realized they could not suppress Omega magic anymore, when they understood that the old order was truly crumbling. There would be more conflicts, more violence, more sacrifice. Over the following months, his prediction proved accurate. The realm descended into chaos, as Omega after Omega woke to their magic. Some were killed by Alphas, who refused to accept the change. Some fled to join the sanctuary, which grew rapidly, transforming from a collection of refugees into a fortified city. Some stayed where they were and fought for rights and recognition in their own communities. The Council of Alphas tried repeatedly to crush the growing rebellion. They sent armies, hired mercenaries, even attempted to recreate the suppression spell, but each attempt failed. Omega magic, once awakened, could not be put back to sleep. And with Rowan and Sylvanas leading the movement, teaching and organizing and inspiring, the momentum was unstoppable. Alphas who saw the futility of resistance began to negotiate. Not all and not easily, but enough. Compromises were reached. New laws were written. The bonding contracts were reformed to require mutual consent. Omegas gained the legal right to refuse, to choose, to leave situations that harmed them. It took 5 years, 5 long, difficult, bloody years of fighting and negotiating and struggling. But slowly, painfully, the realm transformed. On the 5th anniversary of the day Rune had freed Sylvanus from his chains, they stood together on a hillside overlooking what had once been the sanctuary and was now the free city of awakened Omegas. Thousands lived here now, not just Omegas but Alphas and Betas, who believed in the new order, who wanted to build something better than what had been. "We did it," Rune said softly, leaning against Sylvanus's shoulder. "We actually did it." "You did it," Sylvanus corrected gently. "I merely provided the spark. You were the one who refused to let it die, who taught others to remember, who stood against impossible odds again and again. The realm changed because you changed it." "The realm changed because we changed it together," Rune insisted. "I could not have done any of this alone. Your magic, your guidance, your partnership, that was what made it possible." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun set over their city, over their people, over the realm they had fought so hard to transform. It was not perfect. There was still resistance, still conflict, still Alphas who longed for the old ways, but it was better, undeniably, measurably better. "Do you ever regret it?" Sylvanus asked. "You could have stayed in your cave, survived your exile in obscurity. Instead, you chose to become a symbol, a leader, a target. You lost any chance at a simple life." Rune laughed. "I never wanted a simple life. I wanted a free life. A life where I could choose my own path, be my own person, stand on my own power. That is what I have now, what we all have now. So no, I do not regret it. Not for a single moment." He turned to look at his partner, at the celestial stallion who had changed everything by simply existing, by waiting for the right mortal to find him. "What about you? You were trapped and tortured. You could have returned to the sky realm once freed, could have left mortal concerns behind. Why did you stay?" "Because the prophecy was not just about freeing me," Sylvanus said. "It was about freeing everyone. Omegas from suppression, Alphas from the burden of maintaining unjust power, the realm itself from structures that harmed more than they helped. I stayed because the work mattered, because you mattered, because together we could do what neither could do alone." He lowered his head, and Rune rested his forehead against the stallion's, their bond humming with contentment. "Besides," Sylvanus added with amusement, "you are the most stubborn creature I have ever encountered. Someone needed to make sure you did not get yourself killed being heroic." "I'm not that bad," Rune protested. "You broke a magical binding spell with a rock," Sylvanus reminded him, "through sheer percussive stubbornness. You are absolutely that bad. It is one of your best qualities." They laughed together, two beings who should never have met, who should never have bonded, who should never have changed the world. But they had. Against all odds, against all opposition, they had taken a broken realm and helped forge it into something new, not perfect, never perfect, but better, and always improving. Below them, in the free city, Omega children played in streets without fear. Omega adults studied magic openly, their power celebrated rather than suppressed. And throughout the realm, slowly but steadily, the old hierarchies continued to crumble, replaced by something more just, more balanced, more true. All because an exiled Omega had refused to give up, had found a chained celestial stallion, had seen a rune that needed breaking and had broken it. Sometimes, Rune thought, the most powerful magic was simply the refusal to accept injustice, the determination to stand up, even when standing meant facing impossible odds. The courage to say no when no was not supposed to be an option. He had been called defective, unnatural, broken, but he had never been any of those things. He had simply been an Omega who remembered, or perhaps always knew that he was worth more than what society claimed. And that knowledge, that stubborn insistence on his own worth, had sparked a revolution. The rune carved on Sylvanus's prison had been meant to suppress, to control, to maintain the old order. Breaking it had released not just one celestial stallion, but the potential of an entire designation, had shattered chains both magical and social, had proven that prophecies could come true when those destined to fulfill them had the courage to try. As darkness fell and stars emerged overhead, Rune and Sylvanus stood together on their hillside, watching over the realm they had changed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conflicts, new work to be done. The path ahead was long and difficult, but tonight they could rest, could feel the satisfaction of battles won and progress made, could exist in this moment of peace they had fought so hard to create. "Thank you," Rune said softly, "for waiting for me, for believing in me, for partnering with me." "Thank you," Sylvanus replied, "for having the courage to break my chains, for teaching me that mortals, especially Omega mortals, are far stronger than most give them credit for showing the realm that change is possible if someone is brave enough to start it." They stood together as night deepened, two halves of a prophesied whole, partners who had changed everything by refusing to accept the world as it was and daring to imagine something better. The rune had been broken, the chains had fallen, and the realm would never be the same. The end. If this story reminded you that one person can spark a revolution, that breaking unjust systems starts with refusing to accept them, then you need to subscribe to our channel. We create powerful narratives about courage, transformation, and the strength it takes to challenge the status quo. Every story is designed to inspire you to question, to resist, to remember your own power. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that believes in change, justice, and the magic of standing up for what's right. Your support helps us continue crafting these transformative tales. Don't miss another epic story. Subscribe now and be part of the movement.